That's right, Bryan Adams fans. It's not just one Kevin Costner or two Kevin Costners, but the entire action figure run for 1991's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was the second highest grossing movie of 1991, right behind Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I remember seeing this and Terminator 2 with my grandma, actually. My wife kind of jokingly dubbed this Robin Hood Prince of Moms because the Bryan Adams theme was probably a big hit with just about everybody's mother back in the day. So I'm not sure what the court of popular opinion now feels about this movie, but I still kind of like it. I think it was kind of one of those you had to be there movies. Like it was part of my childhood, so I still kind of like it for what it is, even with Kevin Costner's terrible acting and lack of any kind of English accent at all. So this here is Longbow Robin Hood, who comes with a longbow. This line is infamous for all of its recycled parts from DC superheroes. Most of Robin Hood is taken from like a Green Arrow figure with no, except they removed his knee articulation. I'm not going to get into what each part came from. You can find online just people that have really hyper analyzed this line and just figured out where just about every piece of it has come from, which is pretty interesting. So he has a working bow. Longbow Robin Hood comes with a recurve bow, which is kind of an anachronism. Longbow Robin Hood, no one is more skilled with a bow and arrow than Robin Hood. He can slice through a rope from across a courtyard or split one arrow with another. Robin Hood uses his great skills in his battles with the Sheriff of Nottingham. In all caps. That was an interesting thing about this movie, is like the Sheriff of Nottingham is the big bad guy and not Prince John as it usually is in the Robin Hood story. But the line has two Robin Hoods, which are both heavily borrowed from Green Arrow. The Dark Warrior, who's supposed to be one of the Celt warriors, but they just really phoned it in with him. Azeem, of course. Friar Tuck, who's probably the most hilarious one because of what he's got under that robe. Little John, Will Scarlet, played by heartthrob Christian Slater. Took me a minute. And the Sheriff of Nottingham, who's the best part of the movie, played by the late great Alan Rickman. The Bola Bomber and Net Launcher are both recycled from Bone Age, of all things. I have both of these, and we'll look at those in another video. Figured 8 figures was enough for one. Sherwood Forest is, of course, the Ewok village, and is still quite expensive because of that, I assume. And the Battle Wagon is a recycled Ewok vehicle as well, minus a skull on top. If I remember right, his bow actually is pretty good at firing the arrows that he comes with over. And I did forget to mention that the soft goods cloaks and stuff that the figures come with are unique to the line, which is also pretty unique in general. You don't see that a whole lot. So there's the man himself. He's getting kind of gooey. His legs have that kind of sticky sweat to them that we've seen on other things that are kind of solid vinyl. There's definitely some yellowing on the bow's string here, but still springy. He does have a quiver, which is pretty cool to put his blunted arrows in. Yeah, he's all over, kind of sweating. Gets hot in Sherwood Forest. Detailing on his arms, it's supposed to be like studs and stuff. His outfit in the movie is just covered in sequins and stuff. He looks like a disco pimp sometimes. Let's see if we can get that cool action shot like they do in the movies. It flies along with the arrow. It's a big deal when that came out. It looks pretty bad now though, upon rewatching. Alright, so let's see if we can get this to fire. Nice. The string does like to pop out after a firing though, which is kind of annoying. But it's just really a piece of plastic, and it just kind of tabs back into the end of the bow. He's got an elastic girdle here for his belt. Pretty good likeness of Kevin Costner. It's typical Kenner quality there. Better than most, I'd say, really. They did do some favors to him for his hair. He looks really silly in the movie. It's kind of a puffy mullet. And next is another Robin Hood, but this time it's Crossbow Robin Hood, where he uses a crossbow at the very beginning of the movie. The first guy he kills is with a crossbow. He shoots one of the Sheriff of Nottingham's men right in the face with it. This one's in pretty bad shape, but he's actually harder to find than Longbow Robin Hood, but you can get this whole line for quite cheap, and it's still sealed too. So it's the same head sculpt, same kind of issues. He's getting a little, ooh, this one's really sweating on the white. You can probably kind of see there that it's even picking up bits and pieces of the cloak he comes with that is quite huge. Good lord. There, he can completely swaddle himself. He doesn't come with action horse shit to rub on himself like he does in the movie, but he looks like a man of action there. So he's the exact same mold, just kind of slightly colored differently as the other Robin Hood. Look like you can see the arm brace here that's not even painted. Oh, that's sad. And same on this arm. They just flesh colored it and painted on little sweatbands here. So he comes with this quote-unquote crossbow. It's really kind of sad, and it just goes through like that, and you're up to your own flick fire. These ones. In the hands of Robin Hood, the crossbow is a deadly weapon. Well, it's a deadly weapon by definition. By hiding it under his cloak, Robin Hood can sneak past enemy soldiers. When it's time for action, he pulls back his cloak and watches the villains run for cover. Then he shoots him in the face in the movie. So next up is Azeem with Scimitar. He was played by Morgan Freeman. I don't know if there's many Morgan Freeman action figures, but this is a pretty decent one. Looks like at one point this was $3. Since their escape together from deadly torture dungeons, the mysterious Azeem has been the closest ally of Robin Hood. His quick mind and deadly skill with the scimitar blade make Azeem a force to be reckoned with. That's true. He saves Azeem in the torture dungeons, and he swears kind of a life debt to him, and they have wacky adventures through medieval England. It kind of occurs to me, I did rewatch this movie just before deciding to get all these figures to do this. I actually watched the extended version, which changes a lot of the movie actually, and I do not recommend it. But it's really odd that, you know, the figures that they chose for this, like Will Scarlet is really a very minor character even in the extended thing, and so is Friar Tuck, and there's no Marion, there's no Guy of Gisborne, and there's no just, you know, generic foot soldier for Robin Hood to murder. You have the Celt, but I mean that's just from a particular part of the movie. So unfortunately Azeem is pretty sweaty too, and his kind of faux leather robes are just disgusting. They're sticky and sticking to itself, and I don't think this is gonna hold up much longer. This feels like it's just gonna flake to pieces. And he's got the exact same hands as Robin Hood does, because I think his arms are also Green Arrow arms. You can just see everything sticking together, but this is a pretty decent likeness. Morgan Freeman. Oh, they also didn't make the witch, Mortiana, I think her name is. So you can't have, she should have a Kenner, so she would have a blow apart action while Azeem can throw a scimitar at her. That would have been cool. So we might as well move on, do a bad guy now. So we got the bad guy, Sheriff of Nottingham. This is poor Alan Rickman, such a great character actor, and he comes with sword. I assume it's supposed to be the Locksley family sword that Sheriff of Nottingham takes after he murders Robin of Locksley's father. The movie changes his relationship with the witch, if you watch the extended version, quite a bit, where she reveals that she's kind of a fraud. She's supposed to be kind of this pagan in the movie, but she reveals that she's a fraud, and his mother, which is really odd. It's a really goofball scene. In all of England, there is no one more evil than the Sheriff of Nottingham. His goal is nothing less than the utter destruction of his arch-foe, Robin Hood, and will let nothing stand in his way. So let's open him up. Okay, so he's not sweating nearly as bad as the other ones. He's got kind of a cool medallion here, but really Robin Hood should have the medallion since that's a big plot point in there. Most of him is a Lex Luthor character, but his head is from the RoboCop line. He's just got like a piece of wire that acts as a clip for his fabulous cloak here. And he's got kind of a permanent Batman thing going on now. Maybe that was better folded up. And there he is with sword. Yep, it's a sword. So next up is Will Scarlet with crossbow. And there's Christian Slater looking very pleased with himself, even though he's just kind of a whiny turd through the whole movie. Will Scarlet is the long lost brother, oh spoilers, of Robin Hood, and shares some of his great skill with the crossbow. He doesn't ever use a crossbow in the movie that I remember. Although he can be hot-tempered and brash, in the end there's no one more dependable than Will Scarlet. Well, it's questionable. Yeah, Will Scarlet is Robin Hood's father's illegitimate son in the movie. Well, he's teeny compared to the other guys, and you can see his faux leather is left inside of some of the on the blister here. It's just peeled off. He kind of can barely hold his crossbow in kind of a bizarre fashion. I'm not sure which character he was cannibalized from, but it was somebody with silly pants. And his likeness is awful. That doesn't look anything like Christian Slater. I just had the worst time trying to get these two to stand next to each other just so you can see how much smaller he is in every way. Worth it? Probably not. Now the only other villain in the line, the Dark Warrior, making it sound like he is somebody. Here they just have a picture of one of the Sheriff of Nottingham's kind of foot soldiers, which you can see they have very different hats, but he's supposed to be one of the Celts, and when I picked him up a moment ago, he just kind of fell off of his blister. Chief henchman to the Sheriff of Nottingham, the Dark Warrior is a fierce villain who challenges Robin Hood. Clad in armor and equipped with a huge scythe, the Dark Warrior is not an enemy to be taken lightly. I don't know, this hat kind of makes me want to take him lightly. There is a guy who has kind of like a falcon hat in the movie. He's like the head, like this says the head Celt. That ain't him. Oh, he's got kind of a nice little crew cut. He's ready to go to his job interview after sacking Sherwood Forest. And he holds his, what they're calling a scythe, but it's really more of a halberd, I think. And he comes with a little dagger in his belt, which is kind of cool, but he can't hold both at the same time because his other hand is just a fist for popping dudes. He's got kind of this sheer chainmail thing going on, but you can kind of see he's got this cross brace under there. That's because he's got Hawkman's torso. Little John with quarterstaff. Little John in his action figure is Jack. You can see here that it doesn't really look much like the actor. There's a beard and hair, which is about the extent of it. Pity the villain who crosses this guy. Little John is the leader of the woodsmen of Sherwood Forest, and he possesses the strength of a giant. Many sorry villains have fallen to the swinging quarterstaff of Little John. So the likeness isn't great, but it's not, nothing terrible. He's definitely not as colorful, and I don't know why he doesn't have sleeves or anything. But I'm pretty sure he's got Hawkman's chest as well, and he's got these kind of large leg warmers that don't fit so well. There he is with his quarterstaff, and in counter fashion he can kind of use it as a spear. And last but not least is the infamous Friar Tuck with battle staff, who conceals a terrible secret under his robes. Now again, not a great likeness. This guy's just really the comic relief in the movie, and if you watch the extended version, he has a huge beef with Azeem's religion, and of course overcomes it after Azeem performs a miracle cesarean birth. Friar Tuck is a good-natured ally of Robin Hood, but don't be fooled by his unthreatening appearance. He has more than one trick up his sleeve, and his walking staff can actually be used as a fearsome weapon. In the movie, he's just kind of a drunk. Instead of a walking staff here, they really kind of give him a shepherd's crook of kind. He's rather heavy compared to the other guys, and he's just kind of a brown potato. But what we really want to see is under the robes. There he is, one of Jabba's Gamorrean guards. Right from the Star Wars line. They've changed the pauldrons a little bit, but you know, what is a friar doing wearing all this armor underneath that cloak anyway? And look at his little pig legs. It's disgusting. So there you have it. There's the whole gang all together. Robin Hood by Kenner, 1991. They look pretty decent when you put them all next to each other. They have a kind of a unified color palette that makes them look like a pretty decent medieval kind of set. I would caution against getting them though, because they are sweating badly and the fabric parts are deteriorating. They are very cheap to collect though, so if you're really into Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, then you too can have this whole set quite easily. Well, next time I think we're going to do some more Legos and get away from figures for a little bit, because I'm tired of getting goop on my hands and things breaking all the time. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.